Hi everyone, good evening and warm welcome to Business Live. Tonight on the program, Parliament sets an ad hoc committee chaired by Dominic Ayeni and Katie Hammond to investigate calls for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to be ousted. Also, government statistician warns depreciation Cedi could continue to negatively impact on inflation as October inflation hits 40.4%.
The impact of the exchange rate will linger on for X number of months, and the definition or the determination of the X number of months is dependent on the policies that are going to come up in the next 2 months or 3 months.
Meanwhile, an associate professor of finance is urging the Bank of Ghana to develop policies to halt the repatriation of dividends by multinationals to save the Cedi.
Between the month of January to March, we are expecting foreign companies, multinationals, to declare dividends, and they will also be repatriating their dividends out of the country. So this is the time that the central bank will have to be negotiating with them.
We've got details of these and many more in a moment. Please stay. And those were your commodities updates. Let's zoom in straight to our very first story, and we are beginning from Parliament because they have set up an 8-member committee to investigate calls for Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to be sacked. The committee, according to the Speaker, Alban Gbagben, will be chaired by Dominic Ayeni and Katie Hammond. Now, the committee has 7 days to present a report to the House. Joining us live from Parliament is JoyNews parliamentary correspondent Kweku Asante. Kweku, grateful you could join us on Business Live. Now, help us get a sense of what the investigation will entail.
So, for the next 7 days, the key issues that were raised by the minority to support that censure motion will now be looked into by this 7-member committee. We know that the NPP had significant concerns. They said some of those allegations bordered on criminality, and if for nothing at all, these are issues that must be thoroughly looked at before a decision can be taken. But we also know that the one sticking point for this conversation was whether or not the finance minister will be represented and heard at all. We know that if the finance minister elects that a lawyer should be the one to represent him, that lawyer cannot have audience on the floor of the House, because according to the standing orders and other such regulations, only MPs, ministers, the president and the vice president have audience in the House. And so if he picked a lawyer who was not already an MP, that lawyer will not be granted audience in the House. That went to the core of the argument that was made by the Deputy Majority Leader, Alexander Fenyo-Markin, who argued about representation and how all that should pan out. So clearly the Speaker of Parliament is ruling now that this 8-member committee, which is to be co-chaired by a member on the majority side, Katie Hammond, as well as a member on the minority side, a former Deputy Attorney General, Dominic Ayeni, will have to look into these issues and report back to the House in 7 days. And so next 2 weeks, this taking point will be back in the House, where members of Parliament will now have to take a decision. That will be very close as well to the 2024-23 budget, which is set to be presented around 23rd, 24th. So, I mean, very interesting days ahead. But clearly, as you saw there in the debate, the chief whip on the minority side, Muntaka Mubarak, was not very happy with the ruling of the Speaker. Indeed, challenging the Speaker directly on the floor, the Speaker had to shut him down, and the Speaker actually said that it will be very difficult for him to catch his eye in the coming days.
Kweku, help us understand, within this 7 days period, who qualifies to testify or otherwise say that indeed the finance minister is really the cause of the problem? Kindly walk us through who and who can testify before the committee.
So what is expected to happen, Paul, is that this 8-member committee will have to sit the Parliament, the leadership of Parliament will give them exactly what their terms of reference are. But the key is that they have to look into the specific 7 issues. If you look at the other paper, there are 7 key issues that the minority raised against the finance minister: conflict of interest, gross mismanagement, incompetence, ineptitude. These are all issues that the committee will be looking into, and the finance minister himself will be invited to appear before the committee. What I'm expecting is that as early as today or tomorrow, the clerk to this committee will be writing to the finance minister to prepare his defense and to appear before this committee to open up his defense in terms of responding directly to the issues and the allegations that have been leveled against him by the NDC minority in this censure motion. So the committee will look at the totality of this evidence and then make a recommendation to the House that these are the facts that we investigated, this is what we are recommending. Then the House will debate that and then finally take a decision on this. We know clearly that the minority MP, some of them, including the Minority Chief Whip and a former majority leader, Pious Kojo Backah, were not happy with the Speaker's decision because they said when it comes to censure motions, there is nothing having to do with setting up any committee, and that only has to do with the impeachment of the President. The Speaker overruled them, and so we've only heard now from the majority side who say they are excited by the ruling of the Speaker. It vindicates the positions they've made. Currently speaking, the minority are locked up in the chamber, having a meeting. I mean, it's expected to chart the course in terms of what they're expecting to be done in the coming days and what they will be doing now that the Speaker has made this ruling. We don't know if they will probably decide to challenge by a substantive motion the ruling of the Speaker. We are expecting that they will come and address the media. We are all set up here waiting for them. But the ball is now in the court of this 8-member committee, fairly and evenly divided between the NPP and majority sides in Parliament, 4-4 apiece, and they have to look into these key issues that the minority have raised against the Finance Minister and report back to the House.
Now, we also do know that the minority, through the the MP for Ningo Pram Sam George, proposed that the committee's investigation be telecast live. What was the Speaker's response?
Indeed, not much has been said about that, but the Speaker and the leadership of the House will have to make a determination in terms of what exactly this will be done. But given that the first aspect of this censure motion debate has been live telecast on TV, it will be very much interesting if the Speaker and the leadership decide that this should not be live telecast. But ultimately, this is a decision the committee leadership, KT Hammond and Dominic Ayini, will have to take together with leadership of Parliament, the majority minority leaders, as well as the Speaker of Parliament. But we are expecting that the committee will begin sitting as soon as next week because they only have 7 days to report back to the House.
And let me find this from you. In all of this, who is the minority proposing to occupy the seat of Ken Ofori-Atta if they are successful with getting the minister out of office? Do we know?
So the minority having mentioned names now. Indeed, when the minority leader was on his feet on the floor, he said the NPP government has always said that we have the men, we have the men. So where are the men? Is it that it's only Ken Ofori-Atta that can lead the financing of this country, so much so that the president does not want to relieve him of his duty? They haven't put any names out, but they are pulling the ball in the court of the president that if he said the NPP has the men, then it should be easy to take out Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and get equally competent hands to manage affairs. So we are just seeing the minority file out from that meeting that they had in the chamber. We've just seen a lot of them now stepping out. Clearly, they are not coming to address the media. But let me try and see if I can get 1 or 2 of them to speak to us about whatever they are agreed on. Leader, we are live on JoyNews. I mean, Leader, we are live on JoyNews. I mean, in terms of what exactly you decided, can we have any idea about what you want to be seen done?
To see Ken Ofori-Atta go. Nothing more. We just want to see Ken Ofori-Atta go. So bid him farewell and bye-bye. I don't comment on this matter.
All right, so that is the minority leader, Haruna Idrisu, leading his members to file out of the meeting, saying that they are not commenting on the substantive details, those comments and the agreements they had from that meeting. Just when the House resumed, a number of the NDC MPs were locked up in the chamber having a meeting. We are now seeing them leave the chamber, now head to the Job 600, their individual offices. But clearly now that the minority leader himself is not speaking, it's difficult to get other individual MPs to speak. But clearly, you look at the demeanor of the MPs coming out, they are not very much happy. Honorable Pious Kojo Backah, the former majority, like you sought to challenge the Speaker's decision to refer this to a committee. He says you are out of order.
Oh, well, the Speaker has the final say, but I don't think that I was certainly not out of order. But when he's our father, when he talks, you have to accept the situation. But you read the Constitution, you read the standing orders. There is a difference between the removal of a president a speaker or a speakership, and then a minister. And like I cited, Article 82 and then Article or the 108 of the standard orders limit ourselves to the issue of this removal of the minister. On those two provisions, the Constitution and the standard orders, there's no provision for a committee. He referred to Order 106. If you read Order 106 carefully, it says that this is all, and the all is saying that if a member moves a motion on the floor, that there should be a committee set to investigate. Did any member move a motion? So where did he have that?
So will you advise your leadership to challenge the speaker to see by substantive motion?
No, we don't intend to. In any case, the country is already having beleaguered with challenges. We don't need to add more. There's a committee in place. Like I also indicated, what are the terms of the committee? The terms of reference of the committee. You cannot have the committee without terms of reference. And that is absent. And that is because it is a gray area, it's a new area. And I don't think that we needed to form the committee. My position is that once the motion was moved and seconded, we will open it to debate. And then we'll go into the secret ballot. And if the ballot came to the two tests, we refer him to the president. And the president has a discretion as to remove him or not. That is the procedure, simple as. This committee, what are they coming? They are going to investigate what? They'll talk to him, then he'll present his case, and then what next? Are they going to invite people about the Bank of Ghana and then about other financial institutions, extra, about this? That is a challenge. Thank you.
So you had a deputy majority leader, Cletus Avoka. He used to lead the NDC in Parliament, a former majority leader actually. So I've just seen the NDC national chairman, Samuel Ofosu-Ampofo, is around. I'm trying to get something from him. Chairman, good evening. We are live on JoyNews. I mean, why did you have to come here, Chairman?
Oh, why?
Okay, so Chairman clearly do not want to respond to those specific concerns. But we also saw here the General Secretary as well as the Chairman of the New Patriotic Party. Ofosu-Ampofo is also here as Chairman of the NDC. He's just finished this meeting with members of his caucus. But very, very interesting days ahead. The chatter we are taking from the minority MPs is that they are not so happy with the decision of the Speaker, but they've just decided to allow things be and to see what the committee will do. And in the next 7 days for this to get back to the House for a debate and an action to be taken. But Ken Ofori-Atta now has some 7 days of breathing space, of which he can be allowed to appear before this committee, canvass his position, and the House will ultimately take a decision. Pious. So very, KG perspective out there in Parliament.
Kweku Asante for that comprehensive report from Parliament there. You're still watching Business Life with me, Pious Kojo Backah. Still to come, an Associate Professor of Finance is urging the Bank of Ghana to develop policies to halt the repatriation of dividends by multinationals to save the Cedi.
Between the month of January to March, we are expecting foreign companies, multinationals, to declare dividends. And they will also be repatriating their dividends out of the country. So this is the time that the central bank will have to be negotiating with them.
Hello, welcome back. This is still Business Life with me, Pious Kojo Backah. Moving on to some other stories. The depreciation of the Cedi could continue to negatively impact on inflation. That is a warning from government statistician Professor Samuel Kobnenim. According to him, the policy decisions that will be taken in the next few months will determine whether the current volatilities in the exchange rate market will continue to influence inflation. He was responding to questions after releasing the October rate of inflation, which stood at 40.4%.
Relative to last month that we saw about 90% of these items recording an increase. This time around for October 2022, it's only one item that did not see an increase. What that means is that all 306 items saw an increase. So there are two things. One is whether the increases are happening, and from the data, clearly increases are happening. And the second one is the extent of the increases and the impact on the consumer price index given the weights. So 306 items are increasing, but out of these 306 items, we try to look at the top 20 items that saw the highest change. And we all know or expect that of this top 20, we are likely to find diesel and petrol as as part of it. And indeed, diesel and petrol saw the highest increases. But if you go through the items, their contributions are 0.2% and 1.4%. In terms of how the exchange rate is impacting on this, two things that you need to keep in mind is what are the pass-through effects that we always talk about, how many of these items see the pass-through effects, and the timing for these pass-through effects. So it's possible that the impact of the exchange rate will linger on for X number of months, and the definition or the determination of the X number of months is dependent on the policies that are going to come up in the next 2 months or 3 months, and whether they're going to allow exchange rate to have its full effect or is going to slow it down. So whether we've picked or not, one depends on what has happened, the items that are going to be affected by the price increases that we've seen from a petrol, a diesel perspective, and the length of time that is going to take, whether it's short-term, it's long-term, or there's a lag effect, and thirdly, the effect of other policies that are going to come through.
Professor Samuel Kobne is the government statistician speaking there. Meanwhile, an associate professor of finance at Andrews University in the USA, Williams Ripa, has suggested that the Bank of Ghana develops policies to halt the repatriation of dividends by multinationals out of the country to save the cedi. According to him, this is one of the solutions to stop the free fall of the local currency going into 2023.
Within 2 weeks, we have not heard from the central bank or the Ministry of Finance the technical details. So it gives a signal that the president came out just to speak that he can't pay the debt. But the technical details are still being requested so that it will give informed investors how to position themselves. We know that President says there will not be any haircut. What are the technical details? It is needed now. So putting all these things together, you realize that the cedi will still suffer a little bit. We shouldn't forget about the seasonalities also of the dollar to cedi relationship in the month of November and December. Historically, and during this period, we see the cedi devalue. So we are there now. So it's giving a signal that it's also going to happen. And then the U.S. economy have also increased their interest rate, which means that a little bit of capital flights will happen in Ghana, and this may lead to the cedi also devaluing. That is why the government statistician was not able to put his hands on. Also, between the month of January to March, we are expecting foreign companies, multinationals, to declare dividends, and they will also be repatriating their dividends out of the country. So this is the time that the central bank will have to be negotiating with them or coming out with a policy to stop the transfer of dividends out of the country. It happened in South Africa. They came out with rules to prevent companies repatriating. In Nigeria, when the economy was getting worse, they came out with rules. Indeed, it will affect some companies to leave the country. We have heard of Game leaving the country. But we have to protect our currency. So that decision and policies, I don't know whether they will be factored in the budget so that it is going to prevent the cedi devaluing more in January, February, and March.
Away from that, now to Techiman municipality of the Bono East region, where some aggrieved members
skyrocketing, record-breaking fuel prices are forcing some truck drivers to park their vehicles. Some members of the Techiman Market Drivers Association say the operational cost of running a truck, coupled with other expenses to operate, is collapsing the transport trade at a faster rate, thereby pushing several persons out of job. Olman Garba is the General Secretary of the group.
Sa increment fuel increment we dey abrɛ yɛ nyame o hata suru nkwa na betime ade asema mai.
Our businesses are collapsing because most of our drivers are already parking their trucks.
Last 2 weeks now your top fuel 15 a liter no 15.99. And about
2 weeks ago, we were buying a liter of diesel at 15 cedis 99 pesos. Today, it is 23 cedis 49 pesos, and this has pushed us to park 3 of our 4 trucks. This means 8 or 9 persons have lost their jobs.
cars miensa anya hwe kura nipa be 8 to 9 ena omodwuma gunu enti di aban na ye no asese se no aban pese o ka kire se ye nyina ye nya adwuma ye.
He says with the current state of affairs, traders who rely on the services of truck drivers to transport food items to other parts of the country will have to find other alternatives, as members of the association are threatening to lay down their tools.
Sesi amemenu kasei enema ye fa no odwum a week we ye ko na ye ko na tofo anu ko na ba na se
from next week, if we don't see changes in the prices of fuel, the traders will have to find their own private cars to transport their goods.
We are therefore
calling on the president to do something about it, or we'll embark on a demonstration by parking our trucks, and this will affect the transportation of food items to other parts of the country.
Techiman bono is ne yi ha na yetimido so atase yesu ye ma ye nya hwan na ba wo ma ye ho nchire yesa.
These drivers say the hike in fuel prices is adversely affecting the prices of spare parts, thereby affecting general operational cost of their trucks.
Ejuma no de o say ejuma no wo koto tire send dey 20 million a o che obekọ na 30 million, send dey 50 million a obekọ na 25 million. What I say last month I me koto GT Renault 24 million 2,400 and then answer me koya 3,500.
The prices of various papers is skyrocketing every now and then, and this is pushing us out of business.
180 250 say you koya na ya buy nti adwuma no de baby abai no de driver for nam no kwan o de nam so ne de emboa ya kra.
Gabriel, also known as Sojaman, says though the actions of the drivers would affect consumers in other parts of the country, he wants Ghanaians to blame the president instead.
Sesiano, anamo yebetu ni say, yes sense on tifu no so maye. Want so a yes so yebefa ho adwen. And I say be code demonstration straight obi antuka. Come the ababa nso come the ba na nyanya ya na ye president na manaba. Na kwa de ba ko pe come ba na ye na do danko akufado na makomaba.
The incessant hikes has not only affected these drivers but some market women who patronize their services. Ajo Brunya is one of them.
The
fuel prices is affecting all of us. We used to buy new maize at 150 cedis. It is now 500 cedis, and our fare per bag has also moved from 38 Ghana cedis to 70 cedis, and then 80 cedis this week.
70 Ghana, and now was already 80 because this week is to me.
These traders are appealing to government to see to the reduction of fuel prices as a way to help keep them in business.
Yeah, the slide in the 1-2 petrol. Petrol now no e bibia. So what to petrol no bibia no bobo kofum. So what to da for them so we use 1 drum at 3 times.
We are appealing to government to reduce fuel prices, and this will help bring down the prices of all commodities.
Fairness, yes, another yes. Now petrol no one is banning none wires because so but so that just a while to petrol no should.
Reporting for JoyNews. Alas Sabit, Techiman.
So those were some aggrieved members of the Techiman in the Brong East region protesting against rising costs of fuel in the country. And that's it for Business Live for tonight. I am Pious Kojo Backah. Always a pleasure serving you. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. For more news, feel free to log on to myjoyonline.com/business.